Hi, everybody. We wanted to welcome all of you to today's webinar. I'm Isha Akbar, the founder of Sama Health. And today we are talking about something I'm personally really passionate about, communication between parents and children, and especially in South Asian families. I know how tricky these conversations can be when you're navigating cultural values, generational gaps, and just trying to raise emotionally aware kids. And so, to help us dig a little bit more deeper into this topic, I'm thrilled to introduce our guest speaker, Keyuri Vaidya. Keyuri is a child development expert from Genie Kids in Dubai and has had so much experience in helping parents strengthen their communication with their children. So, Keyuri, welcome. We're so happy to have you here. I'd love for you to sort of introduce yourself and we can take it from there.
Yes. Hi, everybody. I hope, first of all, everybody has like a cup of coffee and tea, whatever you like, because I know if you're from Dubai, it's pretty late. But I am Keyuri. I am a behavioral psychologist. I am really passionate about behavior psychology, especially with kids. I mean, I do deal with adults, but I love the field where, I can work with kids. But at Genie Kids, what we focus on is we focus on developing emotional intelligence and also helping kids find coping skills that can help them in their daily lives. Because again, we live in a very fast paced world and a digital world now. So it gets difficult because there's so much access to information, and probably information that they don't need, they're still having to take it all in, right? And most importantly, self-love and self-care and building boundaries. So that's what my work is in Genie Kids. But we do that through mindfulness practices. And now when I say mindfulness, it's not just sitting and meditation. It's a lot of other things. We use dance therapy, art therapy, we do guided meditations. So it's a little bit of everything. So yes, that's like a little bit of a summary of who I am and what I do.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And before we dive in, I just wanted to give a brief introduction about Sama Health. Our mission is to make mental health support accessible and culturally relevant. And today's conversation really is about providing you with those practical tools that you can use to communicate more effectively with your children. So, Kayuri, let's get started. Okay. I know as a parent myself, one of the biggest challenges we face is simply understanding why communication can be so difficult. Again, especially in our, South Asian cultures. So, what are some of the common barriers that you have seen?
So, first of all, communication as a skill in itself is very difficult. Nobody can just master it and perfect it just in like months. I mean, me still as working in this field for about more than 6 years, I am learning my communication skill every single day, right? So it
Mhm.
only comes with practice, and you have to practice it to get better at it. And talking about the South Asian community and South Asian families, we're very heavy on our culture and traditions, which is great. And the way we pass on our traditions and culture, even today in this world where there are so many different things, and probably some people are kind of like, oh no, we don't want this culture or tradition anymore. We still have that, which is lovely. But there is one thing in the South Asian family, which is um, respecting the elders.
Mm.
And I think this is very good that we teach our children to do in a very young age. But sometimes we kind of blur the line as to respecting, yes, but do I not put my opinions forth? I
Mm.
know it used to be very rigid previously and it's not as rigid now, but somewhere down the line, it is still not as flexible. So, what I'm trying to say here is that the communication style in South Asian families, mostly according to research, is the top down communication style. As to, for example, if I am living in a joint family where my grandfather is the eldest in the family, then he guides everybody younger than him to go like, okay, this is the life path you choose, this is the life path you choose. So I do have options, but I have limited options. And because of respecting the elders, and I was not told as to why I'm respecting those elders. If I was told that, oh, you respect those elders because they have so much life experience, because they're your caregivers, and they're going to guide you, that's why you respect them. If that was told to me earlier, probably I was more open to it, and I was like, ah, okay, I can put my opinions and ideas forth. But just because we don't tell them why, I think that's the barrier. The why, not explaining the why, is the barrier, which is
Yeah.
why I'm like, I think kids kind of go like, oh, I can't really tell them what I'm thinking about. So I think that little why there is, which is a blurred line, which is the barriers. Explaining the whys.
Yeah, I think that is so true because, when I think, most of us who were raised, like you said, it's a very top-down, very collectivist community, right? So it's whatever decision you had to take, it had to sort of, you would sort of get this your uncles, your aunts, your grandparents, your cousins, like everybody takes part in that, decision making process, which is great because, back then I did not appreciate it as much. But, for the exact same reasons you were saying that I was not told or explained to. It's just that if someone is elder to you, you automatically respect them and you automatically listen to what they have to say. Now I realize that it's about getting different perspectives, different lived experiences, and it makes the conversation more collaborative. And I think for us, especially for me, sometimes, like when I'm communicating to my kid as well, I feel like I'm, protecting my kids by enforcing certain values, right? So, the value of respect, the value of communicating in a way that the children understand. And I think that's one thing I really, really struggle with, as do I believe most parents, where we are struggling to express our needs to our children, or maybe it's not even our needs, we're just struggling to communicate with our children. And what are some of the signs that miscommunication is happening? I mean, I think the top one that comes to my mind is your child is just not listening to you.
Yes.
you know you tell them to, like, I don't know, like take out the garbage or do some
Yes.
chores, and they just don't get done. So
Yes.
and I think for me, it's a question I ask myself, like, why are they not listening? Like, what's going on in their heads?
So every miscommunication surfaces in behavior. You will see your child's behavior change. Every time you see your child's behavior change, that's where you need to understand that I need to step back and reflect. I like to call it the ABCs of behavior. So first of all, we try to understand, why is my child not listening to me. Now, to find out the why, we need to do the ABCs. In technical terms, it's called the antecedent, the behavior, and the consequence. I'm going to simplify it. So it's basically what comes before and what comes after the child not listening,
Hmm.
right? It could be very simple. I mean, you probably would have not consciously even thought about it. So, for example, your child said, I want to do this. And you said, no, we can't do it. You just dismissed it. We might not even think it's a big deal, but probably for them it was. It was probably to gain your attention, like, oh, we're going to spend some time, maybe going to the supermarket and getting a candy. That was their way to get your attention, but we dismissed it. Um, we did it twice, thrice, and then they're like, she's not listening to me. I'm not going to listen to her as well. So what is happening here is they're trying to get negative attention.
Hmm.
Whatever attention it is, it's positive or negative, they're at least getting something out of it. So it's time to step back and kind of reflect as to what consequence am I going to give that behavior? Am I going to ignore it? Will I just sit with my child and speak to them like, what's happening? Can you tell me why you don't want to do it? Or just rephrasing it as, I understand you don't want to do it. It's okay. We can let that go today, but I would like to know why. So just kind of stepping back, thinking about the ABCs. I would like to give an example. Um, I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know if everybody here is Indian, but there's this movie Animal. It's a new Ranbir Kapoor movie. If you noticed in that movie, everything that he did was for the main character. He did it was for the attention of his father. He was not getting the positive attention, which is why he was doing all the negative things that he was doing. And only if the father would have stepped back and also looked at those patterns of what actually the child needed, there was definitely change in behavior, right? It was miscommunication. No, I mean, it was not even picked up on. Only if the father stepped back and looked at them, oh, there's something wrong. There's communication in behavior. There is always communication in behavior. If my child lashes out, there is communication. Even for toddlers, right? When they ask for something, you don't give them, they flop on the floor and they cry. They're communicating that I want it so bad, right? So everything is communication. Just you need to figure out what the ABCs of behavior are.
I
Yeah.
think that leads us perfectly into our next topic, I think, which is about active listening. And I know this is a big one for parents. It's definitely huge for me because
Yeah.
I have had to consciously and very mindfully pretty much change the entire narrative of
Yeah.
like how I was raised and how I am raising my children now. And it's a very different, uh, it's a very different landscape. We did not
Yeah.
have access to the internet. We didn't have access like Instagram, TikTok. There's so much of things being bombarded to kids. Like you said, they have way more access than us. And so I think what I really struggle with is active listening.
Yes.
And I know that it really requires like for me, I need to like take a step back because my first instinct is always to be like, why are you not doing this? Or we need to get this. Why can't you look at the time? Like, just kind of almost like hustle parenting, right?
Yes.
Because we're always on the go.
Yes.
And I want to like raise calm, mindful children. And so I understand why active listening is so powerful, but I struggle with it. Like I struggle with how do you do it? And so I'd love for you to like show us the light.
So active listening is not easy, right? It's human nature. We listen to respond. We don't listen to understand. And with practice, we learn to listen to understand, right? um Again, like according to research, active listening, when parents do active listening, kids tend to open up about their feelings a lot more, right? And that's what I think one main reason why we are here is to kind of get our kids to talk to us, because of that generational gap. And because of that generational gap, we don't know what the gap is about, and we live in a multicultural part of the world. So the kids are not just taking in the Indian, South Asian culture, they're taking in the Western culture as well. And we probably aren't taking it as much as they are, right? So that communication gap is only going to go through active listening. One way to do active listening is, you don't have to problem solve everything. If your child comes to you and tells you, this happened at school and that person bullied me and I hit them back, you don't have to go in straight and be like, oh, you shouldn't have done that. I get you're upset and I'm very sorry for what happened. I'm not jumping into problem solve. They did not come to me for a solution. If they did, they would have probably said, like, I need help. But they did not. They just want to vent out. And with kids, yes, but even us as adults, like if I am going to my friend and I'm talking about something, I'm not going for a solution. I'm probably just going to vent out. And yes, with active listening, you need to have like a body posture. I'm sure everybody knows about it. You look at what the parent is saying. So the child is saying, you have non-verbal cues, you smile, you nod, or if it's not such a good happy story, then you have certain facial expressions. But don't jump, and also not jumping to conclusions. And I want to pick on something. So for example, when kids say that kids don't do something and we go like, why aren't you doing this, why aren't you probably taking the trash out?
Mhm.
Are we really asking that why to know the answer, or we are just asking it rhetorically? I think it's more rhetorical than actually. I don't want to know why you didn't take out the garbage, but I'm still asking it so that, just making you feel that way. But maybe next time when we do that, we stop and we actually listen to why, to the actual why. So that why question we need to ask ourselves as well, as
Yeah.
to, am I asking it to listen and respond, or am I asking it to just understand? Um,
Yeah.
yes, don't jump
I
to conclusions.
think that is so like key for me because like before, like my first response, like if something didn't get done or if the kids are fighting, it's just like, what's wrong with you? Right?
Yeah,
And then it's so funny that, like the response I get is like, there's nothing wrong with us. And then I realized what I was doing because of course I know there's nothing wrong with my kids.
yeah,
It's the behavior. They might be stressed. And the more I read into it, I realized that, we have the benefit as adults to um de-stress in whatever way we feel fit, like we make our own rules. But for children we have these things like we can only have 1 hour of screen time and go out and play, like we dictate a lot of the ways that they are allowed to de-stress. And as much as we think that they're kids, like what do they have to de-stress about, they are living in a world which is consumed with information overload. I mean, our kids can just go to Instagram and like type in gentle parenting, and it's like they have access to information, and with that information, a lot of them are not emotionally mature to digest that information in a way that enforces their safety, right? So I think one of the key things that comes with active listening is the ability to ensure that your children are emotionally safe and they feel emotionally safe with you, and they are able to come to you and open up without any interruptions or judgments, and like you said, immediate solutions, right? They're just looking for that emotional safety so that tomorrow if something happens, something that's whatever it might be, right, you're their first
yes,
resource. So I love the fact that active listening kind of is really key for emotional safety. Do
yeah.
you have any practical tips for us, like how can we practice active listening, especially when we ourselves are feeling so overwhelmed and busy?
Yes. One is, eh, for example, let me just give you an example. So I have this client that I'm working with. He's a 7-year-old boy. And he tells me, like, every time I go to my mummy and talk, she's always on her phone. She's listening to me, but she's always on her phone. Phones out. And it's just not just for kids, like it's in general when you're talking to somebody. And if I'm talking to you like, yeah, so it's very disrespectful. I mean, first of all, you yourself are a model for an unplanned model for your child. They're going to imitate everything you do. So one is, every time you speak to them, make sure even if your phone is on, just down, screen down, so that they know, okay, I have my mom or my dad's full attention when they're talking. And also another tip is rephrasing what they're saying. What rephrasing does is, it helps them kind of, feel that, oh, they have understood what I've said. If they tell me that, my child comes up to me and tells me, oh, I hit that person because he was being annoying. And I understood what he said. And I rephrase it saying, oh, it seems that you were really upset that you had to do that. I didn't give a solution to it. I didn't say you shouldn't have done that or you should have done that. I just rephrased it to make my child feel emotionally that I understood your emotions. That's where validating comes in.
Hmm.
Um, because even if my child is lashing out, I will validate those, even if they're wrong, whatever their actions are, they're wrong. I still have to validate it. Like, I know you've done that because you were feeling a certain way. We can talk about some alternatives about it, but right now let's talk about how you're feeling. So again, I am telling my child that I'm going to help you solve that problem. But for now, let's look at you. Let's look at what you are feeling. So just making them feel that they are the center of your attention at that point. And for example, if you're busy in a meeting and they're really like, oh, I need to speak to you, and you're not listening to me, you have priorities too, right? And if you're in the middle of a meeting, probably you cannot jump out of the meeting and speak to them. But what I can do is I can explain to them why I'm not listening to them right now. I know you're feeling a certain way and you really want to speak to me, but I'm really in the middle of something. I will speak to you, but just give me so much time, and I promise I'll be there listening to you. So all those things, that way you're also creating a safe environment for them to really open up. So they're in their head, they're like, okay, whatever I tell my parents, they're not going to judge me. So you really have to stop yourself from judging. That's also one human tendency that we have. We end up judging before we listen and think about something else, right?
Yeah. I think everything you said, right? My mind obviously goes to how can us as South Asian parents sort of inculcate this, because it is something that I personally feel both partners, or all caregivers need to understand and value and kind of respect that, hey, this is how we are going to approach this situation.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I had, like with, our children, we've tried our very best to give them the space where they are encouraged to be, vocal about their feelings. And I remember when, my mom was here and my son and I were having a conversation, and he just said, "Oh, but I don't agree with that, and I don't think you should do that, or I don't like you can't do that," was like what he said. And basically, what I said is, "Hey, listen, if you're not going to make sure that you finish your whatever, I'll have to take away your phone privileges." And, he was like, "Oh, you can't do that," is what he said. And so my mom was like, she was like telling me, "You know what? In our time, nobody would speak to me like this." And I'm like, "No, you're misunderstanding his questioning, or like his freedom to express his emotions, because I don't want him to repress it, right?" So I think there's an element of emotional intelligence also that comes into having these conversations, right? And it's so new for, like, I'll just say it. This is very new for Desi parents.
Oh,
Okay.
yes.
We were not raised like this. This is completely new territory for us. And for whatever reason, it seems like sometimes I feel like my kids are more experienced in this, because I've not lived in this era of, the Gen Z language and things that are considered normal for them. And I feel very insecure sometimes as a parent. Like,
Yeah.
am I doing the right job? Am I communicating effectively? Am I raising children who value, respect, and empathy, and all of those things that are so important? And so for me, it's like a big puzzle, right? Like, how can I help my children become emotionally intelligent, but still like parent them in a way that, I mean, I guess it's a form of gentle parenting, but at the same time, ensure that they understand, uh, you know, they understand that they can communicate with us as effectively as we want them to.
Um, Firstly, I think with gentle parenting does not mean that you don't call out your child's behavior. Gentle parenting, according to me, is all about validating emotions but setting healthy boundaries. But we'll come to boundaries. It ties in with emotional intelligence. But what is emotional intelligence? It's basically how empathetic you are, how you deal with and manage your own emotions, and how you would respond to other person's emotions, right? Now, me as a parent, if I want my child to be emotionally intelligent, I need to know what it is And I need to practice it in my personal space for my child to see it and imitate it. How I can do that is, first of all, I need to practice it with my partner, the emotional intelligence. How you and your partner communicate, your child is watching it, and the child is going to take in all of that information from the way y'all are communicating, right? Um, just a very random example. So, for example, if I have a partner who really smokes a lot, and I just, I end up fighting with my partner, be like, don't smoke a lot. Your child's told you not to smoke. And then we get into this huge fight, and then I stop and I'm like, okay, I'm sorry that, I made you angry. And the child gets bullied, and he goes up to the bullies and says sorry. He's seen that. The point I'm trying to make here is your child is always watching you. So you need to start practicing ways to become emotionally intelligent. One is, again, like I said, to stop and reflect on how we're responding, right? A second way is mindfulness. Now, there are a lot of other ways to be mindful. Definitely, meditation is the key one. That's where everything else stems from. But just sitting down and journaling is one way, like, okay, or just sitting, even if you don't want to journal, just sit down and think about one incident that happened in your day. And thinking about how you responded to the other person. Or even if you saw a situation outside of you, how did those two people communicate? So it's mainly about just communication, and again, then coming into open dialogues. How do I foster an environment where my child has that space for to have that open dialogue? Like you gave your example about the phone privileges. You had that environment, you made that environment for an open dialogue where whatever your child said, um he or she had that space to have an open dialogue and put their emotions forward, right? But again, like, also having healthy boundaries, that's where it ties in. And if you yourself as a person don't have healthy boundaries, your child's probably not going to have the best healthy boundaries, because again, what they're doing is imitating. So you really have to show it to them how it's done, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Because they do have access to internet and stuff, but probably they might just apply the wrong things in the wrong place. And I'm talking a lot, but one key important thing is, sometimes we forget that our kids are still kids, and we start treating them as adults, like, oh, they'll understand, I'm going to behave this way and they're going to understand. No, they aren't. They're probably going to they're probably going to think about it in a different way, and you need to tell them that this is what it is. So we really need to step back again and think, and just accept the fact that my kids are still kids. They're
Yeah.
just 15 or 16 or 18 for that matter. They're not adults yet. They haven't seen the world as much as we have.
Yeah. I think that is such a great point. One thing that I think, like most people, we grew up with, like when our parents were, with the best intentions in mind, right? They're like, if you don't do this, this will happen. There is that negative reinforcement that takes place. Like discipline was based on, like, for most people, like fear, or oh, if I don't get good grades, then my parents are going to be angry with me. And I've, as I'm going to use this platform to be super vulnerable right now. I think when you have your first child, you basically parent them how you've been parented, how you've been, raised. And I realized, like, with my second, I became a little bit more mindful. I was more like active, like I took an active role in ensuring that I don't sort of repeat the narratives that I was raised with. And I've seen a marked difference. Like sometimes I like compare, oh, wait, like when he was 3, he was like this, but the second one was 3, he's like this. And I've noticed that now, even with my older one, they are more open to telling me how they feel. Versus, and even when I speak to them, if there is a situation where, they didn't take the right decision or the best decision, I'm very mindful in saying that, hey, I'm not upset with you. Like, there's nothing wrong with you. I'm upset at the behavior. or I'm upset at how you came to this conclusion, and let's talk about, how we can avoid this in the future. So it takes a lot of time, a lot of patience. And I think that's where, like you said, the mindfulness really comes into play, because we were not raised with mindfulness.
Mm.
This is very new for us. And how, like how you said, no, how do you inculcate that mindfulness at a young age, like when your child is born, or when, when they are like a little older, like 3, 4, 5, which is when all these decisions are like coming
Yeah.
in, right? So how do you uh, inculcate that mindfulness and really build that solid foundation for your kids?
Um, when kids are little, I think so I work with a lot of little kids, right? And my the parents that I work with, they also have like a similar question as to how like they don't understand emotions. That's because we didn't name the emotions. A
Hmm.
3-year-old, if the 3-year-old is like getting really aggressive, it's probably they're angry and they don't know that, okay, this is what I'm feeling. So we start by naming their emotions, helping them understand their own emotions, right? I Okay, I see that you're angry, which is why you're behaving this way. I see that you're happy, which is why you're jumping around. I'm going to jump with you, right?
Hmm.
When they're younger. When they get older, again, naming those emotions. Probably when they get older, they are probably going to face bigger emotions.
Yeah.
I see that you're a little bit anxious because I can see your fingers move. Um, that's one way to start is by naming their emotions. The second way to do it is naming your own emotions and telling them what you're going to do about that. For example, if you get into a fight with your child, let's just take the phone example.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're taking away my phone privileges. You'll be like, I am really angry and frustrated right now, not at you, but probably at that behavior. I am going to really take some time and take some deep breaths. I want to have this conversation when I'm calm. What I just did there was I I practiced self-love, which is really important because we want to teach our kids to self-love. Somewhere down the line in South Asian communities, that's not something that's given a lot of importance. It's
Yeah.
out of the window. No self-love. I sacrifice for my family. Great.
Yeah.
Yes. Are we passing that along? I think everybody else is also sacrificing for their family, but they're not practicing self-love. And how am I going to teach my child that if I'm not doing it? So what I just did there was I took some time out. I took space from that situation, not from the person. I ignored the behavior, not the person. And I came back and spoke in a very conscious manner with my child. So that my child is probably going to use that same technique and take it forward in his or her relation with his or her child. So just yourself practicing it, and what you might just do it purposely, like I'm gonna take some time out because you want to show them what how it's done, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
would do that. I would intentionally do that behavior of me, like just taking myself away from the situation to teach them that that's how it's done. Maybe next time your child comes up to you and be like, I'm really frustrated right now, I'm gonna go inside and calm down. Whatever the way they say it, they took a gist of it, right?
Yeah.
So just that way, like teaching them mindfulness little by little. And again, like also in this fast-paced world, teaching them how to stop
Yeah.
and having family time. Okay, 1 hour family time. We're all gonna keep our phones, gadgets away. We're just gonna sit and talk. You don't have to sit and meditate. If you do, awesome, that's amazing. But if you don't, probably you're not a family who's not very who does not like meditation a lot. You can just sit and talk. And at that point, you're being mindful, you're being aware of what the other person is talking about, are free from distractions.
Yeah.
That's what this is.
Yeah, no, I think that is again so important. And I just wanted to let our attendees know that anytime if you have any questions, just feel to pop it in the Q&A. We'll absolutely get to all of your questions. And the other thing that you just said, right, in our culture, in our South Asian culture, this is something that's very new. And again, we are as parents, we are that special generation of people who have been there pre-internet and post-internet, right? So uh, we sometimes like don't know what to sort of do with that information that we have. And you mentioned naming our emotions and letting, communicating that to our children. And it's funny, somebody had told me this like about 4 5 years ago, I think, and I was like, I literally rolled my eyes at them, and I'm like, yeah, try telling that to a desi family. Like, before we say the emotion, only the action has happened, like, so it's like, I remember, like, when I was growing up, we used to have like the wooden spoon. Like, my mom would be like, do you want the spoon? And that was that, okay, no, whatever you want, I will do. So, and I was like, what's the worst that can happen? My kids will like laugh at me, or my, relatives will be like, oh, you're doing this, you're talking to your kids now. I said, you know what, it doesn't matter. Let me just try it out, because I hope, that when my kids grow up, they are able to raise, healthy children, and mindful, like, just kind of passing it on generation to generation, right? I think for me that is like very, very important. So I tried it. I was, I named my emotions. I was very big on taking time for yourself to kind of de-stress, decompress, giving them a safe space. And I have honestly noticed that change in my kids, like especially my younger one. I think the second bonds are, they take in information better. It's like survival of the fittest for them. So they adapt very easily, I think. He'll come and tell me like every single day, like when he comes home from school, like, of course, like you said, I want to be on my phone, or I'm in the middle of something. But, when he talks to me, if something I'm doing is not important, I put my phone down and I give him my full attention. And I say, like, what is it? And then he explains like the whole day, whatever it is. And it didn't hit me until yesterday when he told me, I really like it when you listen to me when I talk to you. It came out of the blue. I was not expecting it. And when he said it, I'm like, oh my gosh, this actually works. you know? So I think it's also about balance and boundaries. So I would love to, talk to you about that open dialogue and setting boundaries, because children need structure. We can't just be
Yes.
like, you know,
Yes.
say whatever you want, do whatever you want, and I'm going to respect your space. Like, so how do we do that?
So I think in this time that we are in, I feel parents are very scared to be firm with their child. And I say firm and assertive, not aggressive. There's a difference between being assertive and being aggressive. I probably what was happening like generations ago was parents were being aggressive, right? We need to be more assertive. If I want to set healthy boundaries, again, when I set healthy boundaries, I am modeling it for my child. So they're going to learn how to set healthy boundaries in their relations, whatever relations they have. One way to do it is, again, like I'm going to connect it to the first thing I said with the barrier, which is the why.
Hmm.
Need to explain to them why this tradition is important, why respecting elders is important, why coming home at 12 a.m. is your curfew. They might not like it, but you're going to do it. For example, if I'm going to set a healthy boundary with my child that this is your curfew time, you have to be back home 12 a.m. sharp. And my child goes like, no, all my friends are out till 3 a.m. I want to stay there till 3 a.m. That's also one, situation to practice active listening and, take in opinions from your child. So I'm going to be like, I explained to you earlier that, we come home at 12 a.m. because probably we have early start tomorrow for school, or it's not safe outside. We need to be back home, or we want to spend time with family. We have other plans, whatever your reason is, explain it to them. And then I'd be like, okay, but I'm willing to give you a little bit of leverage. Tell me your leverage. And my child goes like 2:30. I'm like, no, I'm going to give you 1 a.m. and that is it. I was not aggressive with my child, but I was firm in my tone. I did not have like, oh, tell me. No. Sometimes kids don't need, oh, I know you're feeling that way.
Yeah.
Sometimes kids need like, I know you want to stay out, but this is one, I'm willing to give you a little bit of leverage. 1 a.m. it is. They're probably gonna feel bad about it, but they're not gonna go like throwing stuff out. Because I was not aggressive, I was assertive. And what I did there was I valued their opinion of staying a little more. I gave them a little bit of leverage, but I had control. Sometimes you have to have the control. You're the parent,
Yep.
right? And
Yeah.
sometimes it's, and parents also feel responsible for every little thing. Of course, your kids look up to you as, oh, my parents know everything under the sun. You don't. You're human. And you need to tell that to your child. You need to communicate that, sorry, I don't know the answer right now.
Yeah.
That is also setting a boundary that this is all I know. And there are times when I'm not going to have answers, which is also going to make them into people who are not afraid of saying that I don't know in a room full of people, right? We need to, if my child comes up to me and be like, goes like, I have this thing tomorrow. What do I do? And I'd be like, I honestly, right now, I don't know. We can figure it out together. But if you ask me, you want the answer right now? I don't know. And I need some time. It's okay to use that tone. It's okay to be that firm with them. I'm not being harsh or shouting or yelling at them. I can raise my volume, but I have a very calm demeanor still. So I think that's the difference. You
Yeah.
don't, it's not that gentle parenting, we don't call out our kids. Yes, you do. You call out their behavior, but in a certain body language, not picking up chappals and, shoes and just hitting my way around.
No, I
I don't
think,
think it's allowed in this time as well.
yeah, no, I think that is again, it has personally been very eye-opening for me, right? Like, wherein like you said, it's not just about being firm in what you're saying. It's not a top-down approach. It's how can you be collaborative, right? Yes, there is a decision that needs to be made. I'm going to
Yeah.
ask you, what do you think are the consequences of coming home late? Or what do you think, like, what do you have to do tomorrow that now you will not be able to do because you're staying out late? Or do you think it's a good idea? All of those. And I've realized that again, it's a lot of trial and error, right? Where the kids are like, yeah, but I can do it later, like blah. All of that is fine, but also helping them understand that you've taken this decision, there are consequences to it. So you have to be okay with, maybe the consequences tomorrow you won't be able to go for an early morning hike, or you'll be like so tired that you won't be able to work on an assignment that you have that you have due the next day, or whatever it is. I think the more I personally have involved my kids in like the decision making process, it has been much easier where, I do get that deer in the headlights look sometimes like, yes, I went out and now I can't do my homework, so I don't know what to do, and that is fine too. It's not the end of the world, but now you understand sort of the consequence. And it's the other thing I struggle with, and I don't know if a lot of parents struggle with it as well. Like you said, we are living in this digital informational age. You know, growing up, I remember people were like, if you spend too much time playing video games, you're gonna go blind. And I remember I inevitably because it's in my head. Like I was telling my son, if you play too much video games, you're gonna go blind. And immediately he said, "Hey Google." What are the disadvantages? Like, and I'm like, oh, wait a second. I can't parent the way, we've been like taught with giving misinformation because kids have the access now.
Yes. Yes.
So, whatever you say and whatever you do, it has to be with that narrative of uh, kids have access to information.
Yes. They're not kids who you tell them anything. I just call them to be like kids without, kids with blinders on. They're not
Yeah.
kids with blinders on. You tell them this is the east, and they keep going and running on east, probably if it's the north. So
Yeah.
it's they have information to everything, so we need to up our game. Now, I'm not saying you as parents are at fault, or you as parents need to do all the work. No, that's the whole point. You as parents don't have to do all the work. You as a family have to do the work. It is not your sole responsibility. Sometimes you have to put that responsibility on your child to face those consequences, because if I'm going to always protect my child from the bad consequences, they're not going to learn. They probably, when they go out in the world, they're going to be shocked and they
Yeah.
won't be able to cope. So it's not about you as parents, it's about you as a family.
Yeah.
That's what parents forget, that, oh, I'm the parent, I've brought this person in this world, so I have to do it. No, it's we have to do it. So you just have to shift your perspective and your focus a little bit, and you have to change the words and the way you frame your words. That's what you have to change. There's nothing wrong in the way our parents parented us, because that era was like that.
Yeah.
They were coming from whatever trauma they had, and we're coming from whatever trauma we've had. But again, you just have to shift it from me to we. That's all. It's just the M and the W that you have to
Yeah.
switch.
I mean,
Yeah,
it is easier said than done because, like you said, it takes that
a lot of time.
very mindful, conscious group effort almost. And as parents, and this ties into one of the questions we received, we are so used to the whole emotional blackmailing and gaslighting, as parents. I mean, if you do this, then, like I remember, like again, this is what we've seen in movies also, like if you do this, then what's the point in me staying alive? Or or if you come to them saying that I'm so stressed, they're like, what do you have to be stressed about? Are you paying the bills? Are you raising children? Do you have a husband? No, all you have to do is be a child. So there is no reason why you have to be stressed. So we've kind of grown up with those narratives. We've been raised, like, the movies that we watch, or the parenting style, like you said, has evolved a lot. And but then how do, as parents, how do we ensure that we are not bringing those habits into place, that this whole emotional blackmailing, I have again consciously tried to, like, not be, to say stuff like, oh, we've spent so much of money for your classes, or
Yeah.
we've you wanted to take up pickleball, and then we paid for those pickleball classes, and now you're not even going for it. Like, do you understand the value of money? Like, these are things that sometimes unconsciously just comes out because this is our go-to emotion. Right. So how can, as parents, we be a little bit more mindful? Because, like you said, children mirror us.
Yeah.
Uh, and so how do we do that?
I think you've answered your own question. So the parenting style that was there earlier was more of like a dismissive style, right? I dismiss my child's emotion. You just have to be a child. They're going to school, they have to get A grades, otherwise they come home and their parents are going to start yapping again. They have to go to this class, they have to go, they I think they also have a lot of stressors. I think it's more the it can play in two ways. One is probably there is something that you have to do as an individual, some work you have to do as an individual, and then you bring it into your parenting style. Or second is, again, very mindfully bring that shift into, like, oh, every time you're just about to say, like, I've paid so much money, you stop and you be like, okay, have that say it, but have that conversation with your child, like, okay, let's just sit down and talk about it. So I've paid so much money for this, and I understand you don't want to go. Why do you not want to go? And then just connect that conversation into, okay, so next time when you take a decision, let's try and think about the pros and the cons. So I'm having that conversation. I'm not dismissing the whole fact that, oh, I paid for it and that's it. But I'm explaining to them that it's not cheap, it's expensive. And
Hmm.
I've paid for it. So next time when we make a decision like this, or you make a decision like this, I want you to take in mind those finances.
Yeah.
So I've not the whole situation. I've spoken about it, and I've put a little responsibility on my child. You have to do that. You have to start putting a little responsibility on your kids.
Yeah.
It that makes them feel heard and valued, by the way.
I think that is again like so critical because we tend to forget that sometimes. We're like, we are parents, we know more than you, so all you have to do is blindly listen to us. And that is sort of the narrative we take for everything. Like, we'll tell you what classes to go for, we'll tell you what grades to get, we'll tell, like, it's all we from a very top-down approach and our role as parents, and we only want the best for you without realizing that kids go through burnout as well. You know, kids go through, because I think earlier on it was always about, I can't tell my parents no.
Yes.
I just have to listen to them because they know best. And I remember struggling with it when I was a kid, and I'm like, gosh, like, how do I tell my parents no? Or I don't want to do this, or I don't want to
Yeah.
study this subject, or I don't want to go to this event. But I've realized, like you said, it's all about just open, like it doesn't have to be complicated. It's
Yeah.
just about listening to your children, giving them the safe space to vocalize their emotions and like what they are feeling. And the rest is sort of almost like complementary, right? Like all the other things you will slowly start at falling into place. Your kids start communicating with you more. They're not afraid to open up to you. You sort of become their safe space, for the lack of a better word. Um, I think some of the questions we've got offline, because we did reach out to a few people offline as well. So some of the questions I'm getting is, um, in our culture, children are often taught to not question their elders. I think we touched upon this earlier on. How can I encourage my child to express their thoughts openly without feeling like they are being disrespectful?
Um, Again, you gotta model it. Model it with um I mean it does not happen anymore, but back in the day, in the previous generations, your husband was authority. You could not question your husband, right? Um, but now you can try and model it. Like you can, if you're sitting with your mom and your child, just a little bit, no, you don't have to go all out and start an argument, but you questioning your mom is the start of it. You're telling them that it's okay to question, and you and your mom are still having a healthy conversation, right? So it's about modeling and also talking on it a lot. um Watching stuff on it. There are so many documentaries, there's so many articles. Could Kids might find it really boring, but you can just sit down, there are books on it. You can talk to them just very nicely, just very randomly, like, oh, you know what, I heard about something like this and I was reading and this is what it was. Just share it with them, even if they don't like it. Probably they'll be like, mom, I'm not interested. We're like, okay, I'm fine.
Yeah,
It's okay. But at least you put that little thought or seed into their head.
yeah,
And every time you are in an argument or you're not in an argument, and you think you see your child's body language, you know best, right? And you see that they're not really happy with what you've told them, you give them a probe. Is there something that you want to talk about? Is there something you want to add on it? What are your thoughts on it? We forget probing, we forget asking them, like the question says, like we don't ask them only, right? So
yeah,
we need to poke them to say what they want
yeah.
a
I
little bit.
think I think that's again something. It's so simple, but we tend to overcomplicate it as parents. Like the child is not overcomplicating it in his head. He's like, if my parents ask, I will say.
Yeah.
Uh, so I think, like you're right, we need to sort of model that behavior. Another question I got is, my child has difficulty identifying their emotions. What are some simple exercises or games we can do at home to help them improve their emotional intelligence?
um Online there are a lot of scenarios. If you just type in, like, emotion charades or something like that, there are a lot of scenarios that will pop up. And
Mhm.
now in the AI world, if you just type in on Chat GPT, I want to practice this with my child, give me scenarios. Just talk about it. Role playing works wonders. I really do a lot of role playing with my kids, the clients that I work with, and it works wonders. I give them situations that's happening back in my, office or work or wherever, and I tell them like, what do you think happened? And just very casually, like I'm having like a gossip session with my best friend, like, what do you think I should have done? What do
Mhm.
you think that that person, I think that was really wrong, yeah, what do you think? Just
Yeah.
very casual language and body language. Not right now we're being very formal, but with them just being like, oh, what do you think? No, yeah, just those, because you want it to be relatable also, right?
Yeah.
And right now the language is like very like, I don't know what words they keep on using. Try and learn those kind of words and use it in your conversation. They're going to be like, ooh, how does my mom know about this?
Yeah.
But that also, getting them like books and stuff, giving them those resources as well. And there are a lot of other activities, mindfulness activities. We do those in Genie Kids. It's called body mapping. So we give them those emotions, we explain it to them, and then we ask them to think about where they feel it in their body. Like whenever I'm stressed, I feel it in my shoulders. They're just always like this.
Mhm.
I don't know it, but they're always like this, and I very consciously have to do that. So body mapping is also one great tool. You have a lot of resources on that on the internet as well.
Awesome. I think we don't really, I think it's so awesome that we get to do this at a very young age with our kids because you only realize the effect of it when they sort of grow up or become like teenagers, right? And I've noticed when I talk to my teenager about even if it is like work stress or like, whatever it is, I'll be like, man, what do you think I should have done? And then he'll sometimes look at me and be like, wait, you're asking me for like my opinion on an adult issue? And I'm like, yeah, like just tell me, like, what would you have done? And it's awesome to see that I am part of this, you know,
Yes.
and it's great to see that really. I mean, it's
And
still a
that's
work
the
in
goal.
progress. Yeah.
That's the goal. We don't want our kids to kind of go shocked when we ask them for their opinion. We want to normalize it.
Yes.
That's the end goal, right? That I
Yes.
asked you for your opinion, okay, just like somebody else would have. We need
Yeah.
to normalize it. We don't want our kids to get shocked, like, ooh, what just happened? Right.
Exactly. We have a lot more questions, but what I want to do is I know we're getting very close to the time. So I'll ask one last question and then we can wrap it up. Is how do I handle my child's anger in the moment, especially when it escalates quickly?
Yeah. Um, the first reaction that we have is stop doing it. This and that, and blaming it on them. First of all, stop doing the blame game. I do this with my clients. Sometimes their behavior like escalates to the point where they're about to throw something, and all I have to do is, I'm not being angry at them. I probably am from inside. I'm human. I have that emotion, but I'm firm, and I raise the tone of my volume, and I go like, I really need you to stop right now, and we're gonna have a chat. So I raised my volume. I did not really get angry at them. I was
Mm.
firm, but I raised my tone. So what this does is, it's a communication tip as well. When you're talking to somebody who just does not let you talk,
Yeah.
you little bit raise your volume
Hmm.
so that that person stops intimidating you. Our aim here is not to intimidate our child. I'm just trying to explain that, sometimes to stop that and get your child to calm down, just raise your volume a little bit. Don't be angry. Don't be like, stop doing that right now.
Yeah.
I really need you to stop right now and have a conversation, or go to your room and calm down.
Yeah.
Just, and I will listen to you. Or
Yeah.
just whatever words you're using, just a little bit of volume.
Right. Yeah.
That's
Um,
a fine line between being
yes,
aggressive and
exactly. And sometimes I tell my child, like, hey, it's okay to be angry. It's okay
yes,
to be upset. I know the situation, like it's okay you're frustrated. Uh, but let's figure out a way to talk about it instead of you, I don't know, like throwing your controller away, or smashing the remote, or like whatever it is that kids do these days. So I don't know what, but I think it's important to let them know that there are healthier way to release the stresses
And
of.
I would let them do that as well sometimes. I'd let them lash out, I'd let them throw it. Do it. Try it. Experience it. And then we have a chat about what's healthier. Let
Yeah,
them do it once. It's so human. We do it. Like sometimes when I'm angry, I throw my phone on the sofa.
right.
It's human.
Yeah,
It's okay. And then have a conversation about it.
I
Let
think
them.
that is so important, like what you just said, that it's okay to like you said, throw your phone on the sofa, or like throw your like like in that moment, that is fine, but we can talk about how we can avoid that the next time round, or what are some calming techniques, and things like that. So this has been such a valuable discussion. I personally have learned so much today. I hope our participants and attendees have too. Thank you again, Keyuri, for sharing your experience. And I love how we touched upon everything from active listening to emotional intelligence to, my favorite part, fostering that open dialogue while we maintain, boundaries. I think it's very relevant, and more so in our cultural context as well. For everyone attending, if you'd like to continue the conversation, or explore how, Summer Health or Genie Kids can, support your family's, mental health journey, please feel free to reach out to us. I will be sending the recording, including a deck with some useful information and summary of our webinar today. So if you don't have time to watch the entire recording, you can always just go through our deck. Um, and of course, Kayuri, like, she's available to all of you through Genie Kids. I will include her contact information and Genie Kids information with the email. Again, thank you so much, everybody, for joining. And once again, just wanted to also let you all know that at Sama Health, we do offer complimentary sessions. And we're also currently this month offering a free paid session as well. So the paid session is now complimentary. So please reach out to us at info@samahealth.life. But other than that, take care, everyone, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you all for attending.
Bye, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you. Bye.